You know, I've got a brand new guest for you. Today, I have Dustin L. Fisher, certified clinical hypnotherapist, here with us. And Dustin is going to be talking about some things that we have yet to have discussed on this podcast, but ties right into our trauma roots and the things that we are working on. One of the amazing things about Dustin here is you really focus on helping people to understand, resolve the deeper emotional and nervous system patterns that drive the anxiety, the fear, trauma responses, urges, and internal conflicts.
That's right.
I can't wait to hear about how you even got started with that.
Sure. Well, I started with anxiety because I had my own anxiety and my own certain things that was going on, right? And so I started doing this kind of work in 2014, back in the day. And, at first it was just a hobby, right? Hypnosis was just a hobby. I wasn't really trying to make a career out of it or nothing. And so I was doing, little things here and there. And I started getting into anxiety because I realized I had a lot of social anxiety and
Yeah.
couldn't give presentations. I couldn't, definitely couldn't do anything like this. Couldn't, talk to people naturally and things
Yeah.
like that. And so, I was like, all right, well, let me use some hypnosis on that. And, realized that it was due to a lot of other things, called, different traumas in my life. And so as I started processing certain emotions, I was able to overcome that social anxiety and get myself into more courses and more classes and more education of doing this kind of work. And I just kind of kept going from there. So that's how I started.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of us. I
Yeah.
think we either know someone that we want
Right.
to support and help and change lives, or we are that person that we're trying to
Right.
help.
That's right.
But the funny thing about hypnosis is it always seems to be like the second career for people. It's very rarely the
Sure.
first choice.
Sure.
Uh, but you know what? I will say it is the last career most of the time because it is very, very effective.
It's super rewarding, very fulfilling, very effective, and I can't even imagine doing anything else at this point. There's nothing else that I'd even want to do. Like, and there's something I always say to myself. It's like, well, I was doing this stuff when I was broke, doing it pro bono and just doing it for free,
Yeah.
and at some point I decided to make a career out of it. So I'd do it when I was broke. I'll do it when I'm rich. I'll do it whenever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah. I saw something the other day, and it was something along the lines of, if you were rich, what would you be doing? Would you still be someone working? And it'd be like, oh, yeah, I would still be
I'd still be
absolutely
doing this.
doing this. I could have all the money in the
Yeah.
bank. It doesn't make a difference.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. Like I asked myself because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was working at Walmart, Domino's. I was just doing community college. And I was like, what is? I think what went through my head was I don't want to work for the rest of my life. And I'm tired of working, right? That was kind of what
Mhm.
was going through my head at the time. And I was like, what can I do that I consider not work and still make money off, money in and that kind of thing? And so I was like,
Yeah.
all right, well, the only thing that I really super enjoy doing that I would do no matter what is hypnosis. So I just leaned into that, and it
Yeah.
just kind of became a thing. So
And what a way you've gone with it, because I've had the fortune of seeing you in action. You've actually worked on me before because we've got a common trainer. So we've
mhm.
got some training similarities. And I've seen the way you work with people, and it's profound. You get really, really powerful results very, very fast. And I want to say that when we did, you recently taught a class. Do you want to name it so that I don't butcher what it was called?
Sure.
Yeah.
We called it the Rewriting Reality. Mhm. It's a
Yeah.
class on how to cognitively restructure limiting beliefs.
How did you get to that approach? How did you put that together? Because it's masterfully done.
I'll appreciate it. That is a combination of a couple different teachings. Like in this work, a lot of things are theory based, and so it comes into practicality at some point because you use it with clients and things like that. But it's a bunch of different theories, right? Like the reticular activating system and understanding how that works, and understanding how beliefs are formed and how cognitive bias works, and just all these different concepts. and just understanding how to reverse engineer it, and and at the same time, I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't come from other practitioners and other people,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a lot of, I didn't come up with the RAS, I didn't come up with how beliefs are formed. I just kind of put it in a way to do it, and
Yeah.
um, so it's not 100% mine in the sense of it's just all my stuff, but it is a combination of different theories and different ideas, and yeah.
I think that's, just part of creating anything is we are also an
Right,
amalgamation of all the things that we've learned,
right,
and
for
we
sure.
come through it with a different perspective and a different spin on it. I know that when I go out in the world and practice IEMT, I'm not like any other IEMT
Right,
practitioner. It's just
right,
not.
exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think that's interesting because I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
even know if I'm necessarily doing XYZ right compared to what this person was teaching, but it worked
Yeah.
the way I did it, so I guess that'll work.
I've had to pause and ask that
Oh yeah,
question at
for
times
sure.
of, wow, I've really changed from the things that I've learned, but also I'm far more effective than I've ever been
Right,
before. So is it
right.
necessarily bad?
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's important because it has to be yours. Until it's
Yeah.
yours, it won't flow properly, and you won't have the same energy and the same understanding of it
Yeah.
until it is completely yours. And when it is, then like not only
Yeah.
do you do the work better in a way, but it's also feels better because it's yours, right? It's like
Yeah.
I love the way that I work, and I don't see anybody working the way that I work. And this is, I
Mhm.
think, how people tend to become trainers too, which I haven't
Yeah.
done yet, which I do kind of plan on branching into that at some point. But
Except you did.
well, I did like I did classes
Yeah.
here and there, but I mean like a full on trainer of
Yeah.
hypnosis and things like that. I haven't really done that as much, but I have a lot of different ways of doing it that I never see. I don't see people doing it the way that I do it, and I know the way I do it works because I have done
Yeah.
it for so long. So
And still it's hypnosis, but it's very different than hypnosis because the way
right.
that you took our colleague through that day, this
Hmm.
challenge that they were working on, the thing that I really loved about it that stood out for me was they didn't have to be someone who had to surrender and go into deep trance. They didn't
Sure,
have to even have, visual experience.
sure,
And yet you were still able to take all of the unconscious stuff and bring it to consciousness, and that's where the big healing and the big change
right.
happens. So it was really cool to witness you guide him through just masterfully and super fast how he was able to just come to quick realizations of things and make the change. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Right. Appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a quick process, and and what's cool about it is also it can combine into anything, right? Any modality that you might practice, any modality that you might do yourself, you can just add it in. It's a tool. It's not something that you have to do exactly like I did, but
Yeah.
it's a tool that works, and yeah, so it's a really quick way, and you can always flesh it out more. You can always sharpen the pencil as sharp as you want it, so to
Yeah.
speak, in that type of setting. But yeah.
So is that something you do currently with the gambling clients that you work with now?
So, sometimes I do. That process is a little bit on the back end of what I do now. So I have, I mean, I've used it hundreds and hundreds of times at this point, but um, what's cool about it is when you understand that process, you can actually turn it all conversational anyway. So it doesn't
Yeah.
even have to be a tool anymore. If you understand the tool through and through, then it can be all conversational. So it doesn't, it kind of, it was one of the tools that actually helped me do more conversational hypnosis in a better way. Kind of
Yeah.
teaches the categories in a better way and how to ask different questions and that kind of thing. So, um, I do use it. It depends on the person. It depends on how, because some people you try certain things, and some people it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it depends on the person. And so if I've tried certain things and nothing's really working, I might go into a tool and be like, hey, let's try this out. So it just depends on the client, depends on where we're at with the journey, and if I feel like it's helpful, then I'll use it.
How did you go from anxiety to trauma now to gambling?
Oh, sure. Um, so yeah, I mean, I went from there was actually a lot more in between there. Anxiety, fears, phobias, trauma, the PTSD. I've done a lot of different presenting issues, and really, I see a lot of different clients for a lot of different things because people come in for different things. And so for me, I realized that gambling addiction was a untapped sort of niche, and that was a place where I wanted to start doubling down, because it's just like any other addiction. It's just like
Doubling
smoking.
down, no pun intended.
No pun intended. There you go. Right. But there, it's just like anything else that I might have worked with: weight loss, smoking, drinking, pornography, food or sugar, or there's so many different ones that we work with therapists. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the difference here? And so I ended up having. First, I had a couple traders, right? So like stock traders, and I was like, okay, and I was able to help them stop with the impulse buying or the impulse, selling and buying, and that was a big
Wow.
one.
I mean,
And
that was their career, so that's almost like food addiction, because if you're
right,
human, you have no choice. You have to
right,
deal
for
with
sure.
food. But for them, that's in their daily life. Wow, I
And
hadn't even
it's
considered that.
money, and it's money.
Yeah.
It's a big money one, right? So
Yeah.
I helped, maybe half a dozen people in that, and then I was like, okay. And then I had a gambler come in, and this gambler, she was kind of the one who set off the whole idea for me, because trading was one thing,
Yeah.
but gambling was another. And I was like, okay, so,
Yeah.
this person came in, and she's allowed me to talk about this a bit because I have it on my channel as well and stuff like that. But essentially, I'll give you a little story here.
Yeah.
She was seeing a psychologist for about 2 years, and she was seeing a counselor for about 8 months, trying to solve her gambling addiction. She was in her 60s, and she's been gambling since she was 21. And she was a multimillionaire, and she had been gambling lots of money, right? Lots of money away. And she comes in, and one of the first things she was telling me was, I don't really care about losing all the money, but I can't keep it up forever either. She's like, on a long enough timeline, I'll be broke too. And so she really wanted to get out of the gambling addiction. And what's sent her to me was she had just had a really bad loss, right? So she was on a cruise, and I talk about this on a to how the cruise ships are actually probably the worst place you could go to gamble, because you're trapped on that cruise, you can't leave, right? And they place that casino right in the middle of everything. And anyway, it's a whole thing. But essentially, she had $100,000 this one night. I'm sorry, she had 70,000. I apologize. She had $70,000. She lost $70,000. She put $5,000 more in. She got a jackpot. She got $100,000, and she did the whole $100,000. Lost the whole thing in one night. So she lost 170,000 plus in one night.
175.
Yeah, 170,000 plus, right? And she still had 3 more days on the cruise.
Wow.
And so anyway, she was already seeing a psychologist and a counselor, and it's already been almost 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. And so what got me on this was, well, okay, we did one session. We had 12 sessions scheduled. She did one session, and she quit gambling in one session. And then throughout the 12 sessions, I'm monitoring it, making sure that it didn't come back, and the urges didn't come back, and all of these things. And so one session, session 4, she decided to test it out. She wanted to go and see how she would feel in a casino and online, because she did a lot of online betting too. And she'd put in like $20 on her online betting, lost it, didn't want to bet anymore. She was like, that hasn't happened in years, where she didn't have the urge to continue, because they chase their losses. That's one of the things, is gamblers tend to chase their losses because of an urge, right? And her urges were coming from trauma back in childhood and things like that. And we resolved that issue, and it helped the gambling, right? And so anyway, long story short, it became a thing in my mind. I was like, I don't see any hypnotists really going into this niche, and it's untapped. And when I
Yeah.
looked up the time frame of helping a gambling addict, the traditional time frame from a psychotherapy psychology standpoint is anywhere between 3 months and 2 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, I know I can do it better than that. So
Yeah.
let me go. Let me
Yeah.
attempt to do that. And so I just started again doubling down, going into it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an underserved market.
Yeah,
It's not something I would have thought about in terms of what to do with my hypnosis. And when I think about it, I think it is still very different. I think it is one of the few addictions that still carries a lot of stigma around it. So there's a lot of like social discomfort and shame that still happens.
oh yeah,
And it's one of the few legal addictions that happen. It's very weird. Uh,
yeah.
I'm wondering, I guess, what do you think about all that?
Well, I mean, there's other addictions that are legal that we work with: drinking, smoking, pornography, doom scrolling, these kinds of things. But it's not a chemical dependency like heroin would be, or some kind of drug, right? But at the same time, um, in a psychology type of perspective, it's actually considered just as addictive as if you were on cocaine. And
I mean, all
addiction
the neurotransmitters have to
is
be
the same.
firing. Yeah.
Yeah, the dopamine has to be there and
Yeah.
all of that good stuff. So it's like it's actually equated to just as being as addicted to uh, as if you were doing cocaine all the time. So
Yeah.
it's but it has no chemical dependency, which actually makes it even easier to work with than something like that. Because I don't have to worry about it nicotine dependency or a chemical dependency of any kind. It's
Yeah.
simply just helping people realize it's a choice. It really is a choice. And it can be, once you process the emotions and you regulate the nervous system, the dopamine comes back into balance and it doesn't fire off. Basically, what happens is the high levels of dopamine you get when you play, get equated to safety, which is in
Yeah.
your parasympathetic nervous system, but it's not actually your parasympathetic nervous system. It's just tricked into that. So,
Hmm.
you know, it feels good, which is
Yeah.
what you would have if you have your parasympathetic nervous system activated, your ventral
Hmm.
vagal, but it's actually still a sympathetic expression, and it's
Hmm.
just acting or looking or faking like it's parasympathetic because it's hijacked. And so it's a it's a yeah, basically the dopamine is the high levels of dopamine are equated to safety now. And
Hmm.
because of that, everyday life feels boring, it feels mundane, it feels unfulfilled, and almost nothing that they tend to do can fill it. So if they get
Yeah.
stressed or overwhelmed or lonely or bored, that pain in everyday life just creates this need for pleasure, pain versus pleasure, and their nervous system moves them to pleasure, which is the gambling.
Yeah. I think one thing that any hypnotist worth their weight is going to learn is that the problem is never the problem. And so, as a client, you may go in for one thing, you may go in for another thing, but by the time you get down to the roots, it's a whole other thing. So I think it's just so crucial that you're looking at the nervous system, you're looking at all of the neurotransmitters that are firing, you're looking at the different perspectives of how accessible it is and how that kind of makes it really insidious
Yeah,
because there's like several things. Yeah.
it's actually disgusting in a way, like because I hear people talk about it, and
Yeah.
I just did a episode on my channel, and it was about how the casinos market. And
Yeah.
as hypnotists, we know marketing is essentially hypnosis, and so um, what's interesting is the way that they market is relentless.
Mhm.
They get they you have this player's card, and it's really interesting because you sign up for player's card, and this player's card is like a Fitbit for gambling activity,
Mhm.
and it literally tracks everything you do. And what it does is you put it into the slots, you give it to the dealer, and it'll track how long you stayed, how much money you've put down, how many spins you did on the slot machines. It'll track everything that you do when you put it in, and they're very encouraging. Use the
Wow.
card so we can send you free gifts, right?
Mhm.
And so it seems like they're rewards, but what they're doing is they're actually creating what's called theoretical loss. And theoretical loss basically means we know how much you're going to lose over time, right? So the gifts that they give, the free cookware sets or crock pots or all these things, lower rooms, $40 a
Yeah.
night or free rooms or whatever it is that they're giving,
Mhm.
it's a percentage based off your theoretical loss. So over a year span, if they believe that based off how often you come and how much you spend and how much you lose, if they believe that they're going to win $10,000 from you that year, they have no problem giving you $50 of a free
Right.
gift because that's going to entice you to come in. And then, so that's how they do that.
Oof.
And it's
They're
really
just
bad.
baiting that hook. That's awful.
It's really bad. It's really bad. So, and it's relentless. So when you sign up for the player's card, now they have your address and they just send you mailer after mailer after mailer.
Um,
And I mean, my friend, she was the one who kind of told me about that idea. I was like, you know what, let me look into that. And she showed me the brochures that she got because she lives in, Atlantic City or close to it, I should say. And, and, she had like 5 or 6 different brochures that have different, get your free bowl with warming mat with bowl or $40 a night room or whatever. And so they base their advertising and their marketing off of their theoretical losses, and it's kind of disgusting. So
and it's a lot of stuff that, I mean, if they just went to the store and bought it, they could, they could have it if
right,
they really wanted it, but would they probably even use it? Not really. When
right.
it comes
Well,
down to it, I don't think I've ever needed a warming plate.
right. But it's like, well, but it's
Yeah.
free, it's free. And so now I can get something free and go. And but that's how they get you, because now you're in there and all your dopamine is spiking, and obviously you want to be back in that state because who doesn't want to have fun and feel good, right? And then now you're
Yeah.
gambling when you didn't even want to gamble. So
There's a lot of really weird social dynamics when it comes to gambling because
mm.
I know there are a lot of people who like to bet and play off each other, and it kind of becomes like a competition, a camaraderie. And
Oh,
then there are
sure,
others
of
who do it in
course.
utter secrecy. Their loved ones don't even know because huge
Oh yeah.
social shame. Can you touch on some of that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. The social shame is a big one. So I've even had clients who, they were married and hiding things from their spouses because their spouses were like, well, if you do it again, we're done. And so 6 months, they feel like they're not gambling, but they have their own separate bank
Yeah.
account. They have their own separate thing that the spouse doesn't even know about. And
Oh,
they're funneling money into it as much as they can to try and feed the
yeah.
addiction. It's really bad. And I had a client who he one of his biggest things was that he didn't want to have to tell his wife that he was gambling again because she told him it would be over if
Yeah.
she found out. And so that was going on for like 6 months. And yeah, anyway, he was able to get out of that. So
Oh, that's tough
you know,
because
it's,
then
yeah,
there's betrayal trauma for the spouse potentially, but then also self betrayal. Oh man, I did
oh,
it
it's
again.
always self betrayal. Yeah, self betrayal is
Yeah.
big. It's a big one because just like with any addiction, you don't logically want to do it, right?
Yeah.
It's just emotionally you do. And it's the emotion. That's why we have to process the emotions behind whatever it is, because logically you don't really want to do the addiction. It's not good for you. It's draining your bank account. It's making you break promises to yourself and your spouse and all these different things. But people have so much pain in the emotional perspective, we'll say, that eventually gets too much and they have to move out of that pain and towards pleasure. Their nervous system will make them, right? You have to move
Yeah.
because your nervous system doesn't want to be in a sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or shutdown type of state. It doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really hard place to live because I mean if your system's always jacked, there's no way you're doing anything creative that you really want to be doing. You can't even focus on
That's right.
tomorrow or any of the goals.
That's right. Yeah. So if you're in a sympathetic or a dorsal vagal nervous system state, at some point it's going to move you away, and
Yeah.
it's going to make you do the addiction, because the addiction, and this is for any addiction, but it's an attempted solution to the problem. It's not actually the problem. It's like
Yeah.
drinkers, alcoholics, for example, who want to quit, they don't want to just it's not that they're wanting to drink. It's that that's the attempted solution to whatever the real
Yeah,
problem is. And same with the gambling or the smoking or the porn or whatever. So
that's right.
it's always the same thing. It's always the attempted solution to whatever the real issue is, and so we do have to figure out what that is, right? And
Mhm.
so that's another thing. You don't always have to figure out why it's there, right? Like a phobia.
Yeah.
You have to understand, like phobias are 9 times out of 10 associative learned, which means that you're in a suggestible state, a hypnotic state, and
Yeah.
you're you see something on TV, or you hear a story, or you hear someone say something, or you watch it happen in front of you. And
I'm laughing because I'm biased as hell. Do you do past life regression?
um, I mean, I can, but I think
We'll talk about that sometimes.
sure,
I had a lifelong phobia of snakes, and actually, it
okay,
wasn't a learned thing. It was full
right,
on past life. I had no instances
yeah,
of this life issue, so it's crazy, but it can
yeah,
be weird things sometimes too.
sure, sure,
Yeah.
and so um, it depends, right? But like I said, 9 times out of 10, what I've run into is it's something that you saw or read or whatever, and you won't know what that is. And so it doesn't matter sometimes if you have the exact
Yeah.
reason. It's still a nervous system issue, and it's still an emotional issue. And so if you know how to work at that level, then you can work with most things. So
The other thing that's wild is it doesn't even have to have happened to us. We could see it
right,
happen to
right,
someone else, and that
oh yeah,
is enough as well.
that's right.
We're incredibly complex when it comes down to it that way.
Uh-huh.
You spoke a little bit about the RAS. Not all of my audience are hypnotherapists or
Oh sure,
coaches. Some of them are, but
sure.
most of them are people just wanting to better their lives, heal trauma, and become empowered. So if you want to deepen into that, I think that'd be cool.
Sure. So the RAS, the reticular activating system, it's somewhere in your back of your brainstem back here, and basically, what it does is it proves your beliefs, it proves your reality to yourself. So I'll give you an example of where it kind of came from in terms of what we understand from evolutionary psychology and all that kind of stuff. So the idea is, if I'm a caveman and I have my tribe, and we go out on a hunt, and I see a rustling bush, and a saber-toothed tiger comes out and attacks us, and we live, we survive, we run away, we fight it off, we take it for dinner, whatever. Then we go back out on a hunt, and I see a rustling bush and a saber-toothed tiger comes out, or a wolf or whatever, and then we run away, we fight it off, we kill it, whatever. And we do this 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times. And almost every time I see a rustling bush, another thing comes out and attacks me. At some point, I'm going to make a decision, a choice that I believe in, that if I see a rustling bush, probably something's going to attack me. And so now what happens with the reticular activating system is, once that decision is made, once that belief is formed, the reticular activating system is going to do what it needs to do to scan my environment to make sure that it proves that to myself, that that's my reality. So essentially, it says, okay, let me scan the environment for any rustling bushes, because I believe deep down that there might be a saber-tooth tiger behind it. And so in modern society, in modern times, that looks like the new car phenomenon, right? So
Yeah.
you buy a new car, you had no idea that there were so many of that same car on the road. And so now you see it everywhere. You see it in this parking lot right in front of you, same color, same make, everything. Or a new song or a new word. For me, the word "riz," I had no idea what that word was. It came
This
out
is
of
not a
nowhere.
word.
But it came out of nowhere, and I was like, "Riz, what is that?" And then literally the next 2 weeks, I'm just hearing it on radios, on
Yeah.
podcasts, people on YouTube. I'm like,
Yeah.
I had to look it up at some point. I was like, "What does that even mean?"
Yeah.
And so, eventually, what happens though is, I would say it points it out to you in your reality for roughly a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe,
Yeah.
and then it kind of calms down, because it's supposed to be there. So now you don't have to be on lookout for it. It's just kind of part of your makeup and your schema in your mind, and you see it everywhere whenever you are, you know, just walking around.
The thing that I try to explain to clients is it could go either way. It could be the things that have a lot of positive meaning for you, and it could be the
Oh
things that you
sure.
absolutely don't
Oh
want. But the
oh yeah.
fun thing is, we get to hijack it and we get to use that natural function of your brain
That's
to
right.
help you
Well, I
find
mean,
more of the things you do. Yeah.
absolutely, and if you think about it, that is also where a lot of the problems are, right? Because your reticular activating system is attuned to the phobia you have, and that's why you
That's
see
right.
it everywhere.
That's right.
That's why it's like every part of your life is you see it. It's a very interesting thing. Every phobia I've worked with, pretty much every single one, I think, it's almost like their entire life was surrounded by the thing.
Mhm.
Like their entire life was, from you know back in the day till now. They have not just one or two instances, but hundreds of instances of that thing happening, and it's really interesting. I thought that was an interesting thing. Um,
So when we're talking about the RAS, how does it come into play with gambling?
sure. Well, so the RAS, there's different ways I would say, but I like to think of the RAS connected to belief. So
Mhm.
whatever limiting beliefs a person might hold, or whatever even positive beliefs a person might hold, your RAS is going to be attuned to that. And so if you're a gambling addict and you truly believe deep down that let's just say that the only way that you can get out of the hole you're in is to gamble,
Mhm.
and that's a belief that you decided is true for yourself, you're going to
Yeah.
see gambling advertisements and marketing everywhere. and
Yeah.
and not only are they relentless at sending it to you, but even if you cut off the apps and do your very best to get it out of your mind, your brain is looking for it. Your brain is looking for that belief in your reality, because it's supposed to be there, because you've already decided it's true for you. And
Yeah.
so if that's true, and the only way to get out of the hole you're in is to gamble more,
Mhm.
it's going to find every opportunity to help you do that, because
Yeah.
that's the belief. So in those kinds of ways, it can point to it.
Yeah.
um,
In some ways, I guess I'm wondering if there's also occasionally overlap for people with OCD. If
oh
they
for
see a particular thing, then do they have that compulsion where they feel like they have to engage more?
oh for sure, I would say so.
Yeah.
OCD is it's basically exactly that.
Mhm.
It's literally, I see it everywhere. I can't look
Yeah.
away. I can't, I have to do it. It's more, it's even,
Mhm.
because it's a compulsion, it's even more so. It's like,
Mm.
not only am I seeing it, but I have to act on it.
Yeah.
So if you have OCD and gambling addiction, and you're going to be
Mhm.
acting on it even more so than just, the discipline, the willpower that could be helping you out to stop yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
might be less than, because of the OCD. So for sure.
What I find really wild is you were talking about that client that you helped. You had scheduled 12 sessions, but she
Uh,
had it pretty much nicked after one.
mhm.
And I think if more people knew that they knew that it could be
and and
really
that's what's
straightforward.
interesting. Yeah, and that's what's interesting, right? Because it's like, you know, not to knock different approaches or anything, but um, if
Yeah.
the average time is 2 years, and that's a problem for me. Like, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
take that long. And not to
2
say
years,
everyone,
that's enough time to train wreck your whole life.
right? Exactly.
Can
Even
torpedo
three,
that fast, yeah.
even 3 months.
But
3 months is a
yeah.
long time for something like this too. 3 months to 2 years is the average. I was like, "Nah, I don't know about that.
Mm,
That's something I know I can get done faster and help people with faster. At the same time, we don't want to necessarily say it can always happen in one session, because that's not true
right,
either. Right? It
right.
depends on the person, but ultimately, whatever we think the problem is, like you said, is not the problem. If it was what we thought it was, we would just fix our own problem. So
Oh,
we
exactly.
have to figure out what the real issue is, and that does come down to being open and being
Yeah,
willing to explore things that are uncomfortable. Right? And so,
yeah. If someone is at the cusp, they're realizing that this is becoming a problem for them, they're catching themselves doom scrolling, they're finding that they're starting to have those compulsions, what would you want them to know?
hmm. So they're in that moment. You said, like, they're in the moment of having an urge and that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, and maybe they're starting to realize that, oh, this might be a problem for me.
sure, okay.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, what is the emotion you feel right before you have the urge? because the emotion you feel right before you have the urge is the reason why the urge is there, right?
Yeah.
The urge is there to get you out of that negative state. The urge is to propel you to do the thing that's an attempted solution, right?
Mhm.
It's a, um, when you think about cravings and
Mhm.
urges, they are positive thoughts about the thing. You don't have
Yeah.
cravings for negative things that you don't like. You have cravings for things that you do like, you do want, and that feel good.
Yeah.
And so the craving, the urge is the way to get you out of the emotion you don't want to be in. So what is that emotion and how come it's
Mhm.
there? That's what I would want
Yeah.
a person to reflect on.
I'm curious, how would you know if it's possibly an emotional flashback? Because I'm thinking about all of the PTSD clients I usually work with, and usually I see that a lot. So I'm wondering, I don't do addiction
Mhm.
very, very often. Like if someone really asks me, they're in a bad spot, I will do my best, and
Sure,
it's usually enough, but it's not
sure.
something that I specialize in. So I'm wondering, um, how could they make that discernment? Or I guess most people don't have to make that discernment, but I'm curious about it.
So, well, let me ask you, what do you mean? Can you clarify like the
Yeah.
PTSD flashback? Because,
I'm
you
saying
know,
emotional flashback.
oh,
Are
okay.
they I think for some people, they might be on the cusp of like a shame spiral, and then they will want to do
Oh,
something
for
to
sure.
alleviate that pain.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's exactly it. So it's like, it depends on how come that feeling is there. Sometimes the
Mhm.
feeling is there that they're trying to escape simply because they have
Mhm.
been going through a rough day that day, right? And so that
Okay.
feeling might be there. But sometimes, like in the case that I was mentioning before with the gambler on the cruise, hers went all the way back to childhood. And that was really where the root was what happened to her in childhood. It's not always childhood trauma though. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's 6 months prior to their gambling problem. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not, right? And so the feeling though is always going to be attached to a belief.
Yeah.
And so one way you can kind of start to understand how to get to what the real root issue is or one of them anyway, because there's different. I think this is something that gets misconstrued in this kind of work too. Is I think of it more like a tree, and there's a lot of different roots in a tree, and some of them
Yeah.
are stronger than others. And
Yeah.
so sometimes it's not just one clear root issue. Sometimes there's
Mhm.
several bunches of
Oh yeah.
things that need to be kind
Yeah.
of worked through, right? It's not just, and that's
Mhm.
also why sessions can take so long sometimes
Yeah.
because there's
And that's
different
why I
things.
don't do addictions, because more
Sure.
often than not, it is layered stuff like
Right.
that. And
Absolutely. So,
people who don't or haven't done hypnosis, sometimes they like to think it's a one and done, because there are lots of success stories where, yeah, a 2-hour session was enough to help my spouse break free of,
right.
tobacco. A 2-hour session was enough to help someone who was binge drinking previously. But that's not always going to be the case.
Right.
And it just
And
depends
it
on what they have layered in.
That's correct. That's correct. It can
Yeah,
be. It can be the case, but it
that's
can
right.
also not be. So it is dependent on the person always. And but to get back to what you were saying, um, one way to understand it is like, okay, so let's say the emotion underneath the urge was shame.
Yeah.
Okay, what would I have to believe is true to feel a
Mhm.
sense of shame in this moment right now?
Yeah.
And wherever that belief is, that can bring you back to childhood. It can bring you back to 6 months ago. It could bring you back, so that's a really quick way to understand what limiting belief
Yeah.
might be tied to that emotion underneath the urge.
Mhm.
And then it's about processing that, reflecting on it, understanding it, all these different things that we can do with
Yeah.
that idea, cognitively restructure it, whatever we want to do. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I would say. So the emotion underneath the urge is the signal, right? So this is
Yeah.
another thing, especially with the work that I do, emotional processing, nervous system regulation. I hear a lot of practitioners think of the emotion as the problem. I do not. I
Mhm.
don't think the emotion is the problem. I think the emotion is the signal to the problem.
Yeah.
The emotion tells you what nervous system state you're in,
Yeah.
right? It's not the problem. It is the middle. It is the middle link to the problem, right? So we
Mhm.
have a thought, a feeling, and then the nervous system. Every problem, in my opinion, has those three components no matter what.
Mhm.
You have a what you think about it, how you feel about it, and your nervous system state related to it.
Yeah.
And so the emotion is directly linked to your nervous system. Every emotion is directly linked to your nervous system. And so if the emotion underneath the urge is shame, shame is connected to flight, is connected to a flight response. And so what might you have to believe in this moment is true in order to feel a sense of shame? What you'll find is, generally speaking, whatever that belief is would be connected to a flight response too,
Mhm.
generally speaking. And
Hmm.
so there's different ways you can think of it, but that's
I
the
don't know
idea.
that I'd made that connection for myself. Thank you. I
Mhm.
like that. Um, see, that's your next class.
Yeah, like the experience that they had that kind of started bringing on a shame like that.
Mhm.
It almost like
No,
it.
well, just the way that the nervous system connects to various
All right.
emotions, because I hadn't thought about shame as being flight mode. Because I guess for me, when I've had complex PTSD in the past and I've experienced shame spirals, worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. Never want to do, don't recommend, don't get the t shirt, not worth it.
Mhm.
For me, it was really collapse. Like I would go into a full on
Sure,
collapse state, and that was really tough to break out.
for sure. Yeah, so that's
It's
another thing,
interesting that
right?
they could
Well,
be wired that way.
right, and so when I say flight response, your sympathetic nervous system is your first line of defense, fight flight.
Yeah.
So you know, anger is a fight response,
Mhm.
irritation, agitation, frustration, those are
Yep.
fight responses, fear and anxiety are fight responses. But when there's nothing to fight, it turns into flight. And so
Mhm.
fear and anxiety turn into something to fight back on. And then, then you have other things in flight: depression, sadness, guilt, shame, guilt, grief, right? These are flight responses, but they can turn into freeze and shut down
Yeah.
responses if they're severe enough. So it's
Yeah.
the severity of it that creates
That
it.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh.
then you have, procrastination, which is like a freeze response. You have people
Yeah.
pleasing, which is a fawn response. You
Mhm.
have overwhelm
Oh,
and
I
burnout.
majored in that one a long time ago.
Right?
I'm
So
working on giving it up entirely.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
they're all linked, but yeah, so you're right. It could be linked to a freeze or a shutdown collapse type of response,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Mhm.
it's coming from flight and then it kind of goes into other responses depending on severity. So if it's
Yeah.
yeah, depends on how shameful they feel.
So I think the big takeaway for people listening today is if you're in the throes of some kind of addiction, whether it's gambling, it's doom scrolling, it's shopping, you name it, it's tied into your nervous system. It's not just the emotions that happen. This is very physiologically oriented as well. And that's definitely something to explore and consider.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And that was kind of where I was going, is the emotion isn't the problem. The shame isn't actually the problem. It's the signal to the problem. The signal tells you what nervous system state you might be in, and we have to regulate the nervous system in that sense of around whatever the problem is, and then your emotions process. And you can do that through emotional process. So you
Yeah.
process the emotion, you regulate the nervous system, and then now when you think about the thing, what happens is you don't feel that sense of shame, so your nervous system doesn't have to protect you from it.
Yeah.
That's basically what happens.
So you've also written a book, The Easy Way to Quit Gambling, Exposing the Illusions That Keep You Hooked and How to Break Free for Good.
That's right.
Yeah, let's see it.
This one right here. Yeah. So the easy way to quit gambling. It's on Amazon. Exposing the illusions that keep you hooked and how to break free for good. It's on Amazon, and it is designed essentially to help you become your own therapist, to help you get out of gambling addiction automatically. So one of the things to understand is, especially with this, because there is no chemical dependency, one of the biggest things to understand and take away is we only ever do what we want to do, period. We only ever do what we want to do. And the only reason a person still gambles is because it serves them. And so the book is all about exposing all of the illusions that people think that they're getting from gambling, the relief, the escape, the hope, all of the feelings that they feel like they're getting when they go gamble. Those are
Yeah.
all just illusions. They're actually not real. They're hijacked parasympathetic nervous system states that aren't actually real, because you're not, it's not that, it's an interesting concept. you are in a parasympathetic state, but you're also in a sympathetic state or a dorsal vagus. You're in a hybrid because it's hijacking the nervous system.
Mm.
But all of the parasympathetic emotions like relaxation and comfort and safety and calmness and all these things is what you get when you gamble, right? That's why people go, because it feels good, it feels exciting, it feels, fun and all these things. And so
That's that false sense of
that's
security.
that false sense of security. And so
Yeah.
the book really just dismantles all the illusions around that and teaches you that it doesn't give you anything, takes away everything. And it's designed to have reflective questions at the end. So every chapter has a different reflective question to help you reflect internally about how you've come to that point, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's a way to get yourself out. And you have to break the illusions first, because if it still serves you, you're not going to quit. If it's still something that you want to do, you'll never quit. So you have to decide at some point, you have to truly choose, this is no longer good, this is
Yeah.
no longer right for me. And when you do that and you make that decision, it can happen. It's that decision that really, right? But it has to come internally. It can't be somebody tells you to do. It has to be your choice. It's the same concept as, some people who smoke or drink, and at some point they make a decision. They choose, I'm done, and they stick by it, and they have urges sometimes, they have cravings sometimes, and they don't care. They're able to push through it, and they're just done, right? And so it gets to that point of, I see all the illusions. I see how the gambling industry works. I'm understanding that they're literally tracking everything I do. They're marketing to my losses, my theoretical losses. They're literally doing everything they can to destroy my life,
That's
essentially.
horrific.
And
That
I'm
is
tired of it.
nothing short of horrific.
It's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's only getting more and more popular. It's growing more. It's really bad.
I don't watch TV much. We don't even have cable
Oh,
anymore
yeah,
because I
me
really
neither.
can't be bothered. But when I'm at other people's houses, occasionally I'll see an ad, and I'm like, "Oh wow, that's really ramped up in a way
Yeah.
that I wasn't aware of." And they always show, of course, the bright, happy pictures of
Oh
people
yeah.
laughing and
Oh
feeling
yeah.
good and giving you all those fake feelings that are not real,
Yeah. And you know what's
or
even
at
worse
least not
too?
achieved that way.
Right, exactly. And that's actually something that I talk about too, because I
Yeah,
talk about it on my channel. I talk about it in the book. But the idea is, real fun, real entertainment, real relief doesn't take anything from you,
yeah,
right? So if you think about, like, you go to a football game to watch a football game, even if your team lost, yeah, you might be
yeah,
disappointed, but you don't regret going. You still wanted to go because it was something you actually wanted to do. It was actually fun, actually entertainment. If you're watching a movie, even if the movie was disappointing at the end of it, you
yeah.
still are glad you watched it.
Don't
And
get me
so,
started on the Game of Thrones last season.
uh, but you know what I mean. And so you don't get a sense of shame and depression and
Yeah,
sadness and guilt and all these things, though, because you
yeah,
watched something that you actually did choose and want to watch. So it is.
yeah,
I do talk about that quite a bit. It's not real entertainment, real fun, real relief. It's all.
yeah.
Another way I like to explain it is, you know, um, if I'm walking around with a pair of shoes on that's two sizes too small, and I do all my errands and I go to work and I do all these things, at the end of the day, I take off my shoes, my feet are going to feel good. It's going to have a lot of relief. There's going to be a lot of comfort there because my shoes are off. But the relief is actually manufactured, fake. I should have never had shoes on that are two sizes too small. And that's exactly
Yeah.
what it feels like with the gambling too. It's like, well, there's no reason you should have even had the stress that you feel from an everyday position, just going to work, coming home, dealing with the kids, and going to the grocery store and coming back. Because it's not feeling like this high level of dopamine, it feels like stress, and the nervous system doesn't want to feel stress. And so if you do that long enough, it might take a week, it might take two, it might take a month, whatever it is for that person at that time,
Mhm.
however deep the addiction is. Let's just say it's a week of that. That's more and more stress on the nervous system because it doesn't like that and it
Yeah,
wants to move, right? So the idea is it's manufactured relief based off stress. And
yeah.
unfortunately, that's how it works. So
And then
Uh,
it keeps you isolated from your relationships. It keeps you can't go telling everybody about it and say, "Oh,
right,
I had this really great moment," because it really wasn't a great
right.
moment.
Well, like, even when they win, right? Like even when you win, and
Yeah.
like let's say you win your jackpot, and yeah, you can pay off all your debt, but the problem is now most people go back and gamble the rest of it, and then they go back into the same hole that they were in, right?
Yeah.
And so, and casinos know that. Another thing I like to say is, they don't care how much you win or how much you lose. All they care about is you continue to gamble. They just want you to gamble on a long enough timeline because they know eventually you're going to lose. It doesn't, you know, the amount of money in the industry. They don't care if you win $100,000 on a jackpot. They couldn't care less about it.
The other thing I've noticed is they keep going for younger and younger audiences. They're going for kids before they're even out of high school.
Yeah, no, I could see that for sure. Like,
Yeah.
especially with sports betting.
Yeah.
Sports betting is a big one. Sports betting is huge, and I actually talk about that on my channel as well because sports betting makes you feel like you're more in control because you have the player's stats and you have the players, if this player was injured or whatever. And so, because you have information, logical information, which as hypnotists, we know that doesn't mean anything because we can have logical information that the plane is the safest mode of transportation, but you're still going to have panic attacks if you're afraid of flying, right? So, the idea is logical information isn't the strongest form of information,
Mhm.
and the problem is they might have this um, false sense of security with that logical information. I know the stats, I know the players, I know their last year stats, I know who won, I know the injuries of the players, I know all these things, and so they have this false sense of security. But the truth is, they don't have any actual say of the game, right? So, like, if you're in the game and you're playing the game, now you can actually affect how the game is played and how it gets moved and all these things. But just having the stats actually doesn't do that. It's still more randomized.
Yeah.
So it just gives a false sense of security. So they think that they're able to bet more and be smarter with their bets. And in a degree they can, but it's not enough to actually consistently be, a winner all the time.
I wonder if sometimes that's also a different kind of gambler. Maybe someone who actually just wants more control over their life, and because they don't feel like they have that other places in their life, that's one place they might feel it, even though it's not real.
Could be. It could be. Haven't really noticed that too much myself personally, but it could be. I think that there are head-minded people, there are heart-minded people. There's people who are more analytical thinkers and people who more feel, right? And I typically get a mix, right? So with my clients, it's typically just random. Some people are heart-minded and they're still doing casinos, and some people are head-minded doing casinos, and vice versa. And so I haven't really noticed a trend, but
Mhm.
I think that it's not an impossibility or anything for sure. I think that if your makeup or your mindset is more analytical, there's a good chance that you like stats, and there's a good chance that you like numbers and control because that's what typically head-minded people like. They like that
Mhm.
preparedness and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
sure,
This was fascinating. I learned so much today, and it was a very different look. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
of course, absolutely.
What else is coming forward for you in the next little while? Anything exciting or
Sure.
trajectory of where you'd like to go with this work?
Well, I definitely want to be on more podcasts. I definitely want to expand my reach. Um, I do think, and maybe this is an ego statement, perhaps, but I do think that I could actually be one of the bigger names in gambling recovery because I
Yeah.
have a track record of helping people faster than what I see traditionally being done. And again, we talked about how I don't see people working the way that I work in a lot of ways. That yes, there's
Yeah.
different methods and modalities, but the way I tend to work really gets to root issues very quickly and helps a person get out of dysregulation very fast. So, Can it happen always in one session? No, but it can happen
Yeah.
quickly, much faster than 2 years. So, um,
Absolutely.
so
12
in
sessions compared to 2 years is still a vast
well,
difference.
and and
Yeah.
even in that regard, right?
Mhm.
This client, they came in, we had our first session, second session, third session, we didn't even touch on it because we didn't
Yeah.
have to. So we just worked on other things.
Yeah.
Fourth session, they started to test. They went to a casino. They decided to put $100 in. They were able to just leave because they didn't have to chase their losses. They did the online betting. They didn't
Yeah.
chase their losses. And then we worked on other things throughout the rest of the 12 sessions. By the end
Yeah.
of the 12th session, they hadn't gone back after that fourth session and it was done. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we had 12 sessions, but it wasn't even 12 sessions on gambling. It was just one,
Yeah.
you know.
What I
And
really like is that it also didn't have to be something they entirely avoid for the rest of their life. They felt so in control that they could test and then they could walk away and know that it's
right,
fully done. I think
right.
that's incredible. Yeah.
And you know, I think that's important. I think this is important. It doesn't mean to, okay, well now I'm regulated and now everything's good. It doesn't mean now
Yeah.
start gambling again, right? Because
That's right.
they're just going to get right back into it. And it's just like a smoker who, they quit
Mhm.
for 10 years and they have two cigarettes and now they're binging 2 packs a day again.
Yeah.
It's the same because the neural network is still there, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
mean to go gamble after you've healed that part of
That's
you. It
right.
just means, yeah, I mean, if you want to test it, you can do that because
Yeah.
that is how you'll know. You won't know until you
Yeah.
know. And so,
But it doesn't become something they have to fear for the rest of their
right,
life is more
absolutely,
the fascinating thing.
right,
And I think it is true, the neural pathways, they are still there, and the brain will
still there.
always take the path of least resistance, the
That's right.
easiest way to achieve the goal.
That's right. And that's also why,
Yeah.
if all you're doing is just using willpower and discipline to
Right.
stop it, like, yes, it can work. And yes, you can use that willpower to stop for 10 years, but you
Yeah.
haven't reinforced anything. There's no new beliefs, no new identity, no new
Right.
emotions. And so there's no stronger structure of neural pathways to help prevent a relapse. So
Yeah.
when you do happen to smoke or gamble or whatever, it
Yeah.
just goes right into it.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the problems with just using willpower and
Yeah.
discipline is, yes, you need it, but at the same time you want to build around it. You want to use different
Absolutely.
concepts with it as well.
Yeah.
So
Develop some skills. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your
Amanda,
time, your
thank you for
energy,
having me. Absolutely.
and for sharing. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you on the next training, my friend.
Awesome. Yeah, no, happy to be here and thank you for having me.
All right, Soulful Seekers, I will do my best to put all of Dustin's info in the notes. I know he's got a thriving YouTube channel, and I will make that available for you. And if this is something you're working on, if you just want to end the doom scrolling, if you're realizing that gambling may be something that you're ready to give up, I'll help you get in touch.
Nice.
Otherwise, stay happy, stay healthy, be well, but most of all, stay inspired. Bye for now.
Bye guys.